It's on cable TV.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the White Bear Township Annual Meeting. We are officially calling this meeting to order. It is 7 p.m. March 13th, or March 12th, 2019. This meeting will be cablecast on our government channel 16, and will be re-cablecast over the next several weeks if anybody wants to watch this evening's events. Tonight's meeting is not an official town board meeting. You will notice in the back of the aisles here your 3 town board members who are acting as residents this evening only. Staff and consultants to the town board are also here to help with any questions pertaining to the presentations that will happen here tonight. The primary part of the presentation is the proposed preliminary tax levy for 2020. When it comes to a vote, only town residents have the privilege of voting upon that preliminary levy this evening. And the preliminary levy, as everybody knows, is subject to change as the year goes along. Since it's not a town board meeting, it will not be run by a board chair. Rather, we have a moderator who has graciously agreed to perform that service for us this evening. Bob Kermis, where are you? Bob, right there, has graciously volunteered. And at this time, I need to call for a motion that appoints Bob Kermis our moderator of the evening. I make the motion. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Sounds like Bob. This is your show. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Well, good evening. I see Pat left the microphone low enough for me, so he's trying to tell me something. I have been, as most of you are probably aware, I have been the chair for the town board for the last several years, and I retired at the end of last year, so I'm no longer on the board. The reason I bring this up is that the position of chairman of the board is a lot different than moderating this meeting. So all I'm here for is to guide residents of the township and all the attendees here through the agenda for the evening. So with that said, the rules that we'll follow tonight will be more or less based on Robert's Rules of Order. I'm not a parliamentarian or legal expert by any means, but we'll try to use the Robert's Rules of Order guidelines. And our town attorney, Pat Kelly, will act as, whether he knows it or not, he will act as our parliamentarian for the evening. So if we do have any kind of questions or issues, Pat's our guy. All right. And the town clerk has arranged to have minutes taken for the meeting tonight. So, as a matter of fact, we do have a new staff member, and she's taken the minutes for us, and they'll be available within a week on the town website. Okay. All right. So those 2 issues are taken care of. We all have a copy of the agenda. Or I hope we do. It was available. So the first thing we need to do is to approve the annual meeting agenda for this evening, unless there's any changes or corrections. Is there a motion? Is there a second? Second. Motion's made and seconded to approve the agenda as submitted. Those in favor, please say aye. 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 Any opposed? The agenda is approved. The 2018 annual meeting minutes are included in the packet. And I believe they're also posted on the website too, right? So they've been available for review. And rather than go through those meeting minutes, I'll ask for a motion to approve the minutes as submitted. Is there a second? Second. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the annual meeting minutes from 2018. Those in favor, please say aye. 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 Any opposed? That motion carries. The next item that we have is a presentation from the Ramsey County Sheriff's Office, and I understand Under Sheriff Jeff Romaker is going to do that for us.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I'm going to adjust this microphone here, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's all right, raise it up.
I think that'll work. Pat, your town treasurer, said I only have 10 minutes, so if I go past that 10 minutes, please throw something at me so we can get this over with. But because you guys have a lot more important business to deal with. Just to introduce myself, Jeff Ramaker. I am the undersheriff of our Public Safety Services Division, which is better known as our Patrol Division. It's the division that serves White Bear Township and 6 other contract cities in northern Ramsey County. I have been with the Sheriff's Office for 22 years. I was appointed to undersheriff just this past January when our new old sheriff, Bob Fletcher, was reelected in the office. I previously worked under his administration, but I've done a variety of different things in the Sheriff's Office. I've worked in every division. Most recently, before this undersheriff job, I was the commander of our patrol division. I have a couple other Sheriff's Office members in attendance here to assist me. We always travel in teams. It's a lot safer that way. In the front row here, I have the new commander who took my old job, Commander Tony Waldo. He is in charge of our patrol services, which pretty much is your 911 responders, our K-9 unit, all the people when you call 911. He's in charge of those folks that come out here. Over at the little cafeteria table there, we have Deputy Mike Casey, who's one of our 2 traffic deputies. He's a dedicated traffic deputy that serves the contract cities, spends a lot of his time just going out there and writing traffic citations and moving violations, things of that nature. Just a little bit about the Sheriff's Office in general. There's a lot of people that don't know a lot about the Sheriff's Office. We are obviously your primary law enforcement agency. We are the 5th largest police department in the state of Minnesota. If anybody can raise their hand and name the other 4, I won't waste my 10 minutes of time doing that. But obviously, Minneapolis and St. Paul are 2 large agencies, the Minnesota State Patrol and the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office. We have about 400 plus members of our department. About 225 of those are sworn deputies. We operate with 5 major divisions. We have our patrol division out here that serves you folks. We have a courts division downtown that takes care of court security, civil process, things of that nature. We have our detention division, which operates our jail. We also have a community outreach undersheriff, which is new for this administration. That's in charge of recruiting members into our department, interacting with communities of color and outreach in the entire county. And then we have our regional special services, which has all of our specialty units like our narcotics unit, our fugitive apprehension teams, our special investigation unit, SWAT team, things of that nature. So that's kind of our department in a nutshell. Out here, we have about 100 personnel that I supervise. 88 of those are sworn deputy sheriffs. 12 of them are support personnel. And those are not all paid for by the contract that serves White Bear Township. Some of them bodies are on the levy side, but within our patrol division, we have our uniformed patrol officers, we have our K-9 unit, we have school resource officers, we have investigators that investigate crimes, we have a community support services unit that does all of our community outreach events out here, like Hot Dog with the Deputy, who I'm sure many of you are familiar with and seen. They also do things like Coffee with a Cop, and they manage a lot of our volunteers. So that's kind of our sheriff's office in a nutshell. We operate on that shared services model where we can, we run lean out here in the contract cities, but when resources are needed in any one of the 7 cities, we can have a very large number of of deputies show up on that call at any given time. So that's kind of how the contract system works. It's a very cost-effective way of doing policing. It's very popular. We're not the only urban county that does it. It's popular in Anoka County. It's popular in Washington County. And we've been serving your needs for decades now, I think since the late 80s, early 90s when we took over this city's contract. A little bit about crime trends in White Bear Township. It's a very safe place to live, safe place to work. Calls for service in the township kind of hover around 35 to 3,700 every year. This past year in 2018, I believe we had just over 3,500 calls for service. Those calls for service were down a little bit from the previous 2 years. And you might ask what a call for service is. It's basically just an event. So if somebody calls 911 and we dispatch a squad car, if a deputy makes a traffic stop that's self-initiated, if they come across something, those are all logged as calls for service. They don't necessarily mean somebody got arrested. They don't necessarily mean that a deputy even wrote a report. It's just an event that happened, just to kind of qualify what that really means. So your major things that happen in White Bear Township are medicals, citizen assists, traffic stops, a lot of very mundane, benign law enforcement type things that happen. Some of the initiatives that we are looking to do in 2018, we have a very big one that we're tackling, and it's actually body cameras. Our previous sheriff's administration had it on the roadmap for 2020. Our new sheriff, Sheriff Fletcher, has advanced that and wants to see these body cameras implemented in 2019. He's approached our contract city managers as well as the county board, and we're looking to implement body cameras in the sheriff's office in 2019 by this summer. So it's a major undertaking. It's a major cost ask for our county board, but we've been told that there's support for it, and we've assigned a commander to that initiative, and he's working diligently on getting the ball rolling, so we'll have body cameras. It's one of those things that's a public expectation. It's one of those things that is embraced by our deputies. They want to have body cameras, and we're excited to bring those into our sheriff's office to show that transparency and really kind of show the good things that we do every day out there in the public. So a few of the other things that the sheriff is looking to get accomplished in his first couple years in office. He wants to have a renewed focus on school safety. He plans on hosting a school safety conference this fall in St. Paul. He is big into prevention programs. One of the big ones that he's looking to expand and kind of get going off the ground is opioid prevention. It's a very significant problem in our field. We see it all the time. And we're really looking to tackle that problem on the front end. Additionally, we have a lot of issues with people with mental health problems. We're looking to expand our footprint into that and some resources. And of course, the sheriff's always been big on community engagement and youth intervention, being proactive with our youth, getting them involved in things and getting them on the right track from the start. So that's kind of the sheriff's office in a nutshell. I can entertain any questions if anybody has any questions. Hopefully I didn't go too far past my 10-minute time allotment. Yes, sir.
Just in general, how often should we see our car go down the road if we're lucky enough, to view that?
We get that question a lot, and that's a challenging question to answer. I mean, our goal is to get our squad cars into your city and into the neighborhoods as much as we can. Now, you can stand in front of your picture window for hours and not see a squad car and step away and one will go by. But we are in your neighborhoods where there's a lot of different sheriff's office resources out there. Like I mentioned, we have 88 cops that work just out of this Arden Hills station, from investigators to school resource officers to people answering 911 calls to our water patrol deputies. So it's really a hard question to answer, but I can assure you that we have a lot of resources out there to serve your needs. Anybody else? All right, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Well, the next item on the agenda is to recognize public officials in attendance, and I see County Attorney John Choi is here. And John, would you like to make a couple of comments to us? One thing I'd like to ask too is if anyone has questions for any of the speakers tonight on any of the subjects, please identify yourself and your address, and that's for purposes of the record keeping. Oh, and we do have a microphone in the back for you.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I'm going to be just really brief. I just wanted to, this is a great opportunity for me to come up to the township and say hello as a part of your annual meeting. I was just reelected for my third term this past fall, so thank you for your support and confidence in me. And for me, the work that I do as the chief prosecutor, for me, it's been just a real honor and a privilege to be able to work alongside the dedicated public servants in the county attorney's office. And we do a lot of things beyond, I think when we think about the county attorney, we think about the work that we do around the criminal prosecution, but there's a whole host of other things that we are engaged in. A lot of, we've had an increase in child protection cases, and so those are some of the really the saddest things that we have to work on when we have to remove kids from their homes. Because their parents have failed them. And so those are really just horrific situations, but we have to intervene because we can't just take kids away from the home and place them somewhere else. But we've had a dramatic increase in those types of cases, and a lot of that has to do with the drug crisis that we have. Opioid addiction has been driving a lot of that, and so that's just something that I think that I know that the sheriff's office and our office, we've been in partnership to try to do some more education around the nature of addiction and how families and communities can prevent that. And I think that's just really important work just to lift up the public awareness that we're doing. We're also engaged in civil commitment cases, so when somebody is a danger to themselves or to others, and just an influx of mental health situations that are driving a lot of things in our community. And of course, I think one of the things that we need to be thinking about is how do we build a better response so that we don't have to have people with mental health issues in our jails and having law enforcement contact. If there's better ways to do that, we're having some of those conversations in the county. But at the end of the day, the work that I'm doing, we're just trying to get ultimately better outcomes for public safety, for the quality of justice in our community, for all people. And so for me, it's been a real honor and privilege to be able to work on behalf of all of you, because all of you are my boss. And so thank you for your confidence and support. So I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any. But otherwise, have a great evening. Thank you.
We are hoping to see some more public officials this evening. I don't see anybody. Am I missing? If they come in later, we'll introduce them and give them a chance to make their comments. Next item on the agenda then will be a presentation from Northeast Youth and Family Services. This organization provides support to White Bear Township, and we've been a member for several years. The executive director, Jerry Homolka, will talk to us for a few minutes.
Good evening. This is a little unusual for me. Usually I'm just talking to the boards or the councils, so it's nice to be in front of a group of people. So, and I get 35 minutes rather than the 10, is that right? No. So have any of you ever heard of Northeast Youth and Family Services? Okay, so some of you have, okay. let's go through a quick, I won't do everything here. I always do like to start off with a quote, and you can see it there. We're products of our past, but we don't have to be prisoners of it. What we're saying is that people bring their histories as they go forward in life, but we believe people can change. I also use this because this is about NYFS. We've been around for 41 years. We've learned things over those years, things that we do better and things that we've changed. And so it's just a way of how do we move forward with what we know and what we do best. For those who aren't familiar with us, just quickly, we serve all ages. We serve suburban Ramsey County, the 15 municipalities we partner very closely with in the 4 school districts, but we really focus in on the 5 to 21-year-olds. We got started a long time ago, 40 years ago, when the communities came together and said there's another way that we can work with kids that are in trouble with the law. In those days, what I heard is that if you're in trouble with the law, you were handcuffed, thrown in the back of the squad, and taken downtown St. Paul, and in holding until your court date came up. And the community said, we've got to find a different way to do this. And so the 10 municipalities up then in northwest Ramsey County got together, pooled some money, got some money from the federal government, got some money from the faith community, and we got started. In the first year, we served 100 kids with 4 staff. Today, we're up to 4,000 youth and families and adults. We expand beyond that diversion program. We now do mental health. You've heard a lot about that tonight. I could talk for hours about that. We also do our diversion program. We do a senior chore program. As we age, people want to live in their homes longer. The state believes the longer you live in your home, the better quality of life, but you can't do your chores. And so we connect youth and adults so that seniors can stay in their home. We also do a little small after-school program I won't talk about. That's still down in Roseville. And then the final piece we do is we do what's called a day treatment program. And usually when people hear day and treatment, they think of alcohol and drugs. This is mental health. This is for kids that can't function in a classroom, can't function in the community, can't function in their home. They come and they work with us throughout the year. Half the day is therapy, half the day is education. So I got ahead of myself. Those are our 3 program areas. We're at about a $3.3 million budget. Let's just get into it a little bit further here. People still go, yeah, but what do you do? You know, who do you work with? What is this about? So we're going to borrow this from education. This is the way education kind of looks at and thinks about the population. 80% of the population can function in a normal classroom setting. There's times where they might stumble a little bit. There's times when they excel, but for the most part, that 80% does well. 15% need a little extra, and 5% really need a lot and are pulled out. And those are the ones that usually end up when they start talking about special education or special programs. We use this as well when you think about the population that we serve. Everybody has trouble getting through life someday. Some days you don't want to get out of bed. The last few days with all the snow and the cold, the last thing I wanted to do was get up and face. Everybody has that. Some people, though, need a little bit more, and that's when we start getting into that top 15 and 5%. What we try to do is give people what I call the fortitude and the skills to be able to function in normal society, okay? The other piece I use this is because we also do a lot with mentors and volunteers who help us with our programs, people who are part of that 80% who can help us with what we're doing. So that's how we fit into this, okay? Let's go to the next one here. Quickly, our mental health programs, the big piece I'm going to say here is 2 things. One is we would do what's called a solution-oriented. Rather than sitting down with someone and saying, so what's your problem? And we got real creative about that. Well, what brings you here today? Or what we say is, how would you like it to be? And even though that's a small change in words, it's different when you're working towards something positive rather than working away towards something that's negative. The barriers come in. We will hear them, but it's always what we call solution-oriented. It also says something about our belief about people. We believe people do the best they can to get by with what they have. Maybe the way they're going about it needs to change, but they're trying to be successful in life. I have yet to meet a parent that gets up in the morning and goes, I'm going to do the worst job I can of being a parent. Everybody's trying to do the best they can, okay? That's one of our beliefs. We provide services in 2 places. In clinics, one is in Shoreview. The other one is in the White Bear Community Counseling Center's old building in White Bear Lake. That's how we got to partner with you folks. There were 4 of these youth service bureaus that started 40 years ago. We're the last one that's remaining. They've either fallen by the wayside or they've come together and they've merged. And that's how we got to serve suburban Ramsey County. School-based is the other thing is we know we need to go where people are. Where are kids during the day? in the classroom. So we have therapists that actually go into school buildings and work with the school personnel to provide mental health services and to work alongside staff. Okay? Our community services, I already talked about diversion and that. Really what we're saying is we're trying to help kids get through adolescence to be successful adults. We are at a point in this is my belief, we're at a point in our society where we have more jobs open than we have kids and people to fill them. We need every kid to be productive. It's less of a drain on our resources, and who's going to be the next person that's going to work? We've got great businesses up here that are going, where are our workers coming? Who's going to be our next board in a township or in a school board? How do we get people involved in the community? So we got to help them be productive adults. And finally, day treatment, I've already talked about that. It's just intense. If they weren't with us, they would be hospitalized somewhere. Okay, next one here. Quickly, this is our budget. If you add the green, the red, and the blue, those are our 3 program areas. 75% of what we cost us is for program. The rest of it is to operate the organization. And you see okay? I'm not even going to waste your time on this. I could talk about this forever, but what it says is that contracts, that's right, you're doing good. Stay with contracts, okay? Contracts this is a good dance. We're doing good here, okay? The red is contracts. Somebody says, we're going to give you X number of dollars, provide the service for those people, and as you provide it, we'll reimburse you. In our senior chore program, we pay kids and adults to go out and work for seniors. Up until February, there wasn't much snow. There wasn't much work being done, and so there wasn't much. And so what we started to do is, as much as we can, is get away from contracts because they change, and they may not fit with what we do as an organization. And we've done more with fee-based programs. We are a Rule 29 mental health clinic, which just means that we can use insurance, a person's insurance, to help pay for services. We have a contract with Ramsey County Attorney's Office to provide diversion. They reimburse us as we provide those services. We're trying to get a better balance here. What we're saying is this: nonprofits need to be run like a business. The day and age to say, give us the money and just let us do what we want is gone. We got to prove to you that it's an investment in your community and we're doing a good job with your money. That's what this is really saying. Next one here. Here's what the agreement is with you folks. You're one of 15 municipalities. We say that anybody in White Bear Township can have mental health services, diversion services, or senior chore services by us regardless. We want you to pay something. Because if you got a little money, you got a little skin in the game, it's a little different than just a freebie handout. But we will never say, no, you can't have services because you can't pay for it. I already talked about educational attainment. It's not that we teach kids, we get kids ready to learn. And you may say, well, it's not my kid. But if the kid sitting next to your kid is disrupting the classroom, your kid's being affected. It's about the environment. It's about helping positive learning environments be created. In terms of effective workforce, it's not just getting our next workforce in terms of kids. We hear from adults, if I don't have to worry about my kid or my parent or myself at work, I'm going to be more productive. We know, or people who do the research say, for every dollar that you put into mental health services, an employer can expect a productivity of about $180. That's a pretty good investment. That's what we talk about these days, is social return on investment, which is the next one there about reduced cost to public. What the county says to us is, please work for it out in the county, take care of those before they become deep end, and then they come to us that we have to work with. And so we're trying to do prevention and early intervention so that they don't need county services. We use your money to leverage resources. We get a grant from the Metropolitan Area Agency on Aging for senior chore, but they ask us for a match. We're able to use your money to help match that grant. And then finally, the one that I don't put up here is problems don't stop at boundaries. We're part of a community here. And so we're working with the 15 municipalities to try and make it a great place to live, work, and do business. This is just numbers. Think of households here comparing 2017 to 2018. And I just have to point out, up in the right-hand corner, our information analyst left us for another job at the end of December, and we just got a new one, so we're a little bit late here in getting our year-end report to you. But what we're saying is in 2017, there were 20 households. We don't work with an individual, we work with them within what's going on in their life. In 2018, through September, we had 17 households. We put a dollar value to it based upon the industry. Diversion, 6 and 8. Senior chore, there's the seniors and the youth. So in 2017, there were 34 households that got $26,000 worth of service, and the contract or the agreement with you folks was $19,800. That's what we say, it's an investment. We can bring in more resources. 2018, so far through 9 months, 31 households, 23, 19,956. You say, well, how does it go up? What we do is we use the CPIU in June to decide whether what you do to support us goes up or down no more than 3%. Okay? Numbers. How am I doing here? Stop or go? 3 minutes. Let me then talk quickly about, here's what's going on. Mindfulness. Has anybody heard about mindfulness? Okay, mindfulness that you don't know is this. How many of you have gone on vacation and brought your cell phone with you, and as you're sitting on the beach, sitting by the pool, sitting by whatever, you're connecting to work or connecting whatever? Mindfulness is be in the moment. What we're seeing is mindfulness for us in mental health is folks that have had traumatic experiences or horrible experiences or stuff going on in their life aren't in the moment. Somebody checked in for services at one of our clinics. In the process of the receptionist asking the guy for the card, for his insurance card, he lost it, cussing and swearing and whatever at this. And after we're talking with her about it, she goes, all I did was ask for his insurance card like you would if you went anywhere. What she was dealing with was not the moment. She was dealing with all the other stuff. How many other times has he had to deal with insurance and cards and all that goes with that? That's what being in the moment is. So we're working with folks on being mindful. Connectedness, we just need to be part of community. I won't get at that. Workforce, here's the big piece. Go to the next one. Our schools got us ready to do this. How many of you did multiplication tables growing up? Okay, I was pretty good at multiplication tables. Who uses a multiplication table today when all you guys will a computer do whatever? This was helping us get ready to do things on a repetitive way, where today what we've got to get kids ready for is this. Same thing, just a little different. How do we get folks to be innovative? How do we get folks to work with others? How do we get folks to be productive, not standing on a production line, but in an innovative way? I'm not even going to the next one here. This is all what's, you skipped one. Here's our partnerships. 15 communities. You can see White Bear Township there. There's the school districts, the foreign May ones, plus we do a little bit with Mahtomedi and St. Anthony. So we're everything from St. Anthony to Mahtomedi and Hugo and White Bear Township down to Falcon Heights. That's Northeast Youth Services. Quickly, go back to the other one and we'll finish with here. I've got 1 minute, Pat, and I'm done. Collaborations are important. We believe, and the way we got started, back to the story, was partnerships. We can't just sit in our office. We got to get out in the community. That's why we come out to the 15 municipalities that partner with us once a year to talk to you. So thank you for letting me come here. We also are involved in associations. We're involved in the Vadnais Heights Economic Development Council. We're involved in Rotaries. We're involved where people are being part of community. We've had a long relationship with the faith community, and this is why I want to talk about this, is business. There are more help wanted signs out on all levels of industry. And what business is finally saying is, we can't stay in our factories and in our offices and expect people to come to us. We got to get out in the community and part of the community. We're seeing more businesses starting to volunteer. This is a change from about 15 years ago. Businesses realize they need to be a part of the community. Otherwise, they're not going to have employees. So that's the part about everybody being together on this. And finally, if you want to help us out, we got a leadership lunch. It's a way that we bring over 300 folks together. It's over on the other side of the suburban area, but it's about community coming together. And the one that's more in your area at the Vadnais Heights Common is a taste where we bring in restaurants and come together and have a nice community together. So thank you for partnering with us. Thank you for helping us work with you to create a place to live, work, and learn. Questions, comments, reactions? Yep.
You talk about diversion. What is that?
Diversion, great. Diversion is divert a kid from a court. This is low first-time offenders. We can either say you can go to court and you can deal with court, or what you can do is you can come to us. We're still going to meet with you and your family and find out what's going to go on. You're still going to understand that you have broken the law, and if you need to do restitution or forgiveness to someone, you do that. But then there is what we call a seminar where you find out about what went on, and community service, and this is the key part. Community service used to be, and we still hear some people, well, just make them go out in the streets with a toothbrush and clean the streets and they won't want to do it again. No, what a kid does is, I just won't get caught next time. Our community service is positive stuff, volunteering somewhere, being a part of something, contributing back to, we do a lot with Feed My Starving Children, and we do a lot with helping out seniors. And I'll never forget the kid that goes, she wasn't so weird. That was all right. And so about being part of something, of giving back to community and being part of. Diversion is a different way of working with kids with first-time offenders so that they go, the reason just say no to drugs didn't work is because we didn't help them say yes to something positive. And that's what we're trying to do with kids. Kids want to be successful. Give them a choice to be positive or negative. They're going to go positive. That's what we're trying to do, is divert them from negative by helping them be positive. Great question. Thank you. Any others? Yeah, hi.
Steve Detloff, Lakewood Avenue, and I'm just curious, how much does the township spend with you?
In terms of time or money? Go back to that slide, please. It's, okay, so right there down at the bottom, you can see the city contract of 19.9. And what we do is in 2018 through September, we've already brought in $23,000 worth of services. So you help that. But what we're saying is we want to see this as an investment, that we want to provide more services than what you just paid for. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Anybody else? I'll get out of your way. Thank you for your time. Thank you for letting me come to your township. I made the mistake one time of calling you folks a city. Okay? And as a result of that, we now say we have 15 municipal partners rather than 15 city partners. And that's all right, because we need to understand our partners. So thank you for letting me be a part of you tonight. Good luck with the rest of your meeting. Maybe we'll see you next year. Yep.
Thank you, Jerry. Let's see, I don't see any new faces out here, so let's go on to the next item on the agenda, and that's number 9. The Met Council has a requirement to update the community comprehensive plans every 10 years, so we've started working on that this past year. And we have Laura Chamberlain here from HKGI, the consultant that's been working with the township on this project. So Laura, take it away. And again, I suspect there might be some questions from the floor for Laura. If you have any, please identify yourselves at the mic back there.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Laura Chamberlain. I am a planner with Hoisington Kogler Group Incorporated. We are a consulting firm who was contracted with White Bear Township to work with you through the comprehensive planning process. And we are in the final steps of going through the 2040 comprehensive plan. So in general, what is a comprehensive plan? It's a long-range document that looks typically 20 to 25 years out in the future. This one will look out to the year 2040. It is intended to be broad in scope and policy-oriented, and will provide the basis for future decisions and investments from your town board as well as your public officials and township staff. And it focuses on every aspect of how a city or a township or a county functions, and how all of these elements, come together. And at a very high level for looking at land use decisions, housing decisions, parks, trails, and open space, transportation, and then other infrastructure. So the planning process that we've gone through, we started this back in, I believe, end of summer 2017, and there's 5 major phases. We are right at the tail end of phase 5, but first, understanding the current conditions of the township, conducting or engaging in community context and community engagement, updating the actual content of the plan, and then preparing the plan, preparing the complete plan all together, and then with a complete draft, seeking approvals. And that's the stage that we are in currently. And there have been a few key points in the process that we have gathered public input. In the fall of 2017, we had an online engagement tool called Social Pinpoint, where you could drop an icon within the city and then leave a comment of, I like something here, or I'd like to see something different at this place. And we had over 70 people comment, or 70 individual comments, and some threads of comments within that. Last year at this time, we had a display at the annual meeting. Some of those display boards are over here if you would like to peruse them a little bit more. And then those displays were also at the administrative offices. And then coming up next week, on Monday, we have a public hearing for the final draft of the comprehensive plan. This is the draft. We have there will be a link available on the township website, as well as a physical copy in the town administrative offices to look through. Our comprehensive plan is split into the following chapters. We have an introduction and community context, then moving on to land use plan, transportation plan, water resources and community services, parks and open space plan, trail plan, the housing plan, and implementation. The biggest thing of looking out into the future is to see forecasting where we're going. And with that, we've been working with the Metropolitan Council establishes region-wide forecasts for population, employment, and households. And then we have been working based off of our land use analysis and how we think that the township is growing, what we think those estimates ought to be, or that forecast ought to be. So the lower line here, you can see a small increase in households. There are only a few available parcels left for residential development within the township. And so that will be a slow and steady increase in number of households. Over time, however, even with an increase in households, it's estimated that the household size within White Bear Township is going to decrease over time, which will actually lead to a stagnation in population instead of continued growth. So some trends and directions that the township is headed in within our comprehensive plan. The township will continues to have a unique and be a unique community within the metropolitan area. Being a fully built-out community, but also having a township form of government is not something that many other places in Minnesota have, and particularly in the metro area. And so that comes with a lot of unique circumstances that are reflected within how policy is regarded for the 2040 plan. As I mentioned before, there are very few properties that are vacant or underdeveloped within the township. Most of the development that is slated to happen where vacant or underdeveloped areas are along Centerville Road, and that includes residential as well as some commercial and industrial areas. A big focus of a lot of other communities and the Metropolitan Council in general is identifying areas that are prime for redevelopment. In our analysis of land use within the area, we found that areas that are prime for redevelopment, that have access to transit corridors or other key intersections, things along those lines, are really, because of the way the township is laid out, are actually found in your surrounding cities. So within White Bear Lake or within Van Ness Heights, they kind of have those areas that maybe are more appropriate for redevelopment. So there are not as many prime redevelopment areas identified through this plan, which is a unique situation, but also makes sense given how the township is laid out. And looking at our parks and open space, as well as our trails chapters, the park board prioritized future trail connections within the township and then also connecting to our regional network. Here is a map of the future land use plan. Generally, we have the exact same map as the current comprehensive plan, which is still in enforcement right now. We did add a public institutional future land use, as well as had adjusted residential densities for there's one parcel with a designation of residential PUD along Centerville Road, and that PUD has a range of densities, including low density, medium density, and high density housing, and the intent of that area is to be built as a mixed housing, or excuse me, with a mix of different types of residential types. As you can see, by breakdown of land use types, a majority of what is considered the land area within the township is actually water and wetlands. 21% is residential, less than 1% of the land area is commercial, 5% industrial, around 2% for institutional, and then 10% for parks and open space. That includes the county parks as well as township parks, and 8% for right-of-way. Within the process of the comprehensive plan, we finished a draft of the document back in September-ish. And at that, or August, I think, yes. So in August, excuse me, it's right there on the prompt. And at that time distributed that draft to a list of adjacent and affected jurisdictions. And that's a list that is made up by the Metropolitan Council. It is a requirement of state statute for us to send our draft to adjacent communities to allow them an opportunity to make sure that our comprehensive plan is in agreement with the policies that they are looking for, and there's no conflict. Similarly, the township has been receiving copies of our neighboring jurisdictions, their comprehensive plans during this time as well. And that review is a required 6-month review. We just finished that up last month, and we received comments from the City of Hugo, City of Lino Lakes, City of Van Ness Heights, the City of White Bear Lake, which waived comment, Rice Creek Watershed District, MnDOT, which also waived comment, and then Minnesota Department of Natural Resources. In general, most of the comments that we received from our adjacent communities were in recognition of our documents, where the document aligned with their plans. There were some minor and technical changes. No land use changes were recommended or requested, and we were able to integrate those into the draft that you see, or that is available today. And we had our Planning Commission reviewed the draft document at their February 28th meeting. They voted to recommend to the town board that the town board authorize the submittal of this draft of the comprehensive plan to the Metropolitan Council. And as an element of that recommendation, they recommended the town board follow one of the comments that was provided by the City of Van Ness Heights to remove White Bear Parkway and Labor Road connection from the future functional class road map, as that had been in our previous 2030 and 2020 comprehensive plans. Van Ness Heights has since removed it from theirs and requested that the areas shown within the borders of Van Ness Heights be removed from our comprehensive plan. So what's next? As I mentioned before, next week we have a public hearing regarding this document at the town board meeting. Then after the town board will hopefully authorize that to be submitted via resolution, and a draft of the plan will be submitted to the Metropolitan Council for their review by March 20th. And after the Met Council receives it, they conduct a completeness review. Once deemed complete, then they have 120 days to officially completely review the document for consistency with regional policy. Once that review is over, then the township will have an opportunity again to address any issues or move forward. And we anticipate that we will be adopting the 2040 comprehensive plan sometime this fall. There will, as I mentioned, will be a link to download the plan on the township website, and I also have it here, but it's kind of difficult to see. So I can take any questions.
Kelly Johnson, 4064 White Bear Parkway. Could you enlighten us why the Labor Road and White Bear Parkway connection, which has been in the works or at least been talked about for several decades now, how come that was removed from consideration?
So that was removed from Vadnais Heights, I believe, when that road was initially studied with the I-35E corridor study, and maybe that was in the early 2000s. That connection had been identified as a, excuse me, I'm just trying to find the right word, a frontage road, and what in our transportation functional class we call an A minor arterial. And since then, looking through the process of where that alignment would go, there were some issues with, I believe there's a wetland and lake right over there, as well as would go through what is now private property of someone in Vadnais Heights who maybe previously had been interested in selling, but now it appears is not. And that's kind of on the Vadnais Heights side of things, but so that's how they came to the conclusion that this is likely not going to be a connection that they are going to invest in at this time, and haven't really seen the need to have that A minor connection at that point. Whether or not there could be a future connection that doesn't have kind of a functional class or have that high of a status, or that could be possible, but that is not, we wanted to make sure to remove it from our arterial network.
Okay, thank you, Laura.
All right, thank you.
We do have one public official in here. Blake Huffman is the Commissioner, Ramsey County Commissioner for our district. Blake, would you like to add a few comments?
Sure.
First of all, let me congratulate the township on getting rid of that former supervisor, Kerman. Bob's a fabulous guy, and he knows I'm a big fan of his. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Let me just hit a couple of highlights real quick from the county perspective. Item number one is we believe we're going to continue to play a role in economic development, and that's going to impact all the suburbs out here. Eventually, someday, your great-grandchildren perhaps will see TCAP get redeveloped. No, it won't be that long, but we're working with the city of Arden Hills, trying to figure out how to reach an agreement to keep that moving forward. But we've got land in the old West Publishing, and the old prison down in, or jail center in St. Paul is being redeveloped by a private company. We'll throw off lots of private money. Roads, we're doing roads. I know your pavement management is about to come up and give that update. But we're about to, this summer, we're going to do Bald Eagle, the west side of the lake from H2 up to J. Lots of cul-de-sac, or a lot of ditches in there. We'll fill in those ditches, put some real storm sewer in there, etc. Rush line is coming 2020 to the east of you over down 61, stopping in downtown White Bear Lake. So when that's all said and done by 2022, you can jump on a bus and take that downtown to Union Depot if you're so inclined. Lots of new excitement at the county with, we have a new commissioner, Tristan Mattis Castillo. We have a new sheriff who's not here, but I see his people are here. Bob Fletcher, good guy from Vadnais Heights, neighboring Vadnais Heights. Lots of great things happening. We have great employees at Ramsey County. We're trying to figure out how to keep your levy down. We sometimes do better than other times. We're rebuilding the Vadnais Dome. We're just trying to figure out how to pay for it. We're looking for a name sponsor, maybe the Bob Kermes Fieldhouse. I don't know, Bob, if you're interested in that. But that's coming. We'll get that built over the summer and be ready hopefully for next winter, assuming this winter goes away. So let me just stop there. You've got a lot of other things to talk about beside me. Any quick questions for me? Sir?
Who's going to own that dome that you're rebuilding?
Who's going to own the dome, and it's going to be a field. We're going to make it a field house. It'll have a permanent roof, so it won't collapse like it did last April 15th. And the county will continue to own it. It's right next to the hockey rinks or attached to the hockey rinks that we own as well. Any other questions? Oh, sir.
The builder of that dome, did they have any liability in it?
I'm not sure who had the liability, but we had insurance that'll pay for a good chunk of that replacement. So the insurance replacement will be very helpful. But we're gonna make it a permanent roof versus the old Metrodome roof, if you will, right? So it'll be a permanent hard roof in the future, so it won't collapse again. Exactly right. It'll be a structure, probably similar size. I don't know that all that's been determined yet. Other questions? Always good to see fellow Ramsey County employees here, Steve. Great to see you. Anyways, thank you. Enjoy your meeting.
Thank you, Blake. Tell you what, Blake, if you really need a name to put on that sports center, I'll let you use my name, but first you have to guarantee the roof doesn't collapse. Okay. Last year, the board and the township staff went to work on looking at streets and street maintenance and replacements in the township. And it's an extensive issue that we need to address. So we put our engineering consultant, TKDA, to work on the project. Larry Poplar is here from TKDA tonight, and he's going to walk us through the plan that they've submitted to the township.
Thank you for having me. As we exit the winter season, we're now entering the pothole season, so it's a good time to talk about pavement management. I'm Larry Poplar. As Bob mentioned, I work for TKDA, a consulting engineering firm that actually has been the township's engineer for over 40 years. And also with me is Jim Studinsky, who's actually been a town engineer for many years as well. So as Bob mentioned, the pavement management, we began studying this last fall and trying to get an overall look at the overall system, the overall pavement system in the township, and really trying to plan for the right improvements for the township moving forward, looking at costs and trying to find a way to balance those costs. So kind of give you a little bit of an overview of pavement management. It's being planful about our maintenance activities, our improvements for our streets, and really to prolong the life of the street. The initial investment in a street, the construction or reconstruction, is by far the costliest portion of street maintenance. And so if we can extend that life, that initial construction or reconstruction investment over a longer lifetime, it provides value to the township in terms of overall cost. And we're trying to find the best return on investment in doing the right improvement at the right time. Trying to assure safe streets and preserve property values as well. So I'm not going to talk a lot about street deterioration, but the primary source of deterioration is drainage, and trying to control the drainage off the street and getting it away from the street. If it gets into cracks and into the street base, it freezes and thaws and moves materials. And so trying to do improvements to keep that drainage away from the street. Soil conditions are also a concern. If they have poor soils, the street just doesn't last as long. Original street construction, if it wasn't built to the proper strength for the loading, you don't get the life you need out of the street. And just time marches on, and the pavement oxidizes and becomes more brittle. And so those are all factors in street deterioration. This is a curve of degradation of a street. And so every street degrades a little bit differently. That curve is steeper for some streets, depending on the factors I just mentioned. And so every street has this curve of, it starts off in excellent condition and just over time slowly deteriorates. Next slide, please. And so this is another graph that shows the deterioration. The red line is that curve I just showed, where if you do nothing to the street over the course of 25 to 30 years, that street will degrade. And then you would have to invest dollars to improve it back up to a brand new condition, and then it would deteriorate again if you did nothing. If you follow the blue line has improvements or items that can be done to prolong the life of the street. So the first couple blips there are seal coats and crack sealing. And sealing the cracks and seal coating the street helps prolong that life of that street. But eventually, maybe 20, 22 years, 25 years, you have to do what's called a mill and overlay, where you're taking the top surface, grinding it, removing it, and putting a new surface on. And that brings that life back up, not quite up to 100%, but back up to a higher percentage. Again, you do strategic seal coating and crack sealing, and it degrades some more, and then you do another mill and overlay to prolong that life, and eventually you can't do another mill and overlay because the base material beneath the street has just broken down over time. But that's how you can get 55 to 60 years out of that initial street investment. So if you follow that blue line versus the red line, you can save 33% on the overall cost of that street over the course of 60 years. And so that's what we're trying to do and trying to help the township manage. So the township, we're going to talk more about the township streets. The township evaluates their streets on a scale of 0 to 5, and all the streets in the township are analyzed and given a rating. And what we found is that the overall average of the township street system is 3.4. We are recommending that range or that rating of the entire system stay within the 3.4 to 3.6 kind of that range. Certainly we want to be higher than 3.6 if we can, but if we can try to stay in that range, that's good for the township overall. Streets that are below a 2.2 rating, and maybe you can go back to the other slide, they're kind of down in this range where they're looking at more costly improvements eventually for repairs. The range here between these two lines is 2.2 to 3.25. That's the category we're looking at mill and overlay type of improvements. I can go to the next slide. So when you look at the overall street system within the township, the green category is the category we're looking at seal coating and crack sealing, and about 60% of the streets in the township are at that just in that seal coating and crack sealing range. They're up higher in the graph. Streets that eventually will need mill and overlay are in the yellow. There's 6.6 miles or 15%. And then the red is the category where the streets are beyond that 2.2 and lower ranking. And so there's about 25% of the township streets that have are below that 2.2 category. Overall, it's good to see that there's 60% of streets in that above that 3.25 or in that seal coat, but the percentage of the red is a bit higher than we'd like to see. So taking the data and looking at the overall township, we looked at grouping projects over the next 5 years, and really we want to try to prioritize that yellow category to try to catch them before they get to the red category. So we're recommending a series of mill and overlays this summer to try to get those streets before they get to that red category, and again try to prolong that life of that street. We have a few years, 4 years of improvements, more extensive improvements, mainly in the southeast area of the township, and then in 2023 looking at another larger mill and overlay project. Also, as a part of the evaluation or the study was to try to look at our communication, undertaking street improvements, getting the word out there about the street improvements, and then talking to people about how that affects you and what the costs are going to be. So we, as a part of the study, created a communication outline and plan for projects. So overall, after the study was completed, the overall recommendations were to complete the right improvements at the right time, and we're here to help make make recommendations to the town board for that. We want to prioritize the crack sealing, seal coating, and mill and overlay projects to get the most life out of your streets. Overall, for the system, because we have 42 miles of streets, if you do the math on every 20 years of mill and overlay, every 60 years of reconstruction, the township should be completing about, on average, 0.7 miles of reconstruction or rehabilitation and 1.4 miles of mill and overlay to get that life, that 60-year life out of the street. And so as a part of that, that amounts to roughly $2 million. So part of the study was looking at a strategy to come up with costs, and we're still working on that with the town board on the right way to spread out the costs in terms of assessments, tax levy, and the utility funds. And we're exploring other options for funding as well. So that concludes my part of the presentation, and I'm here for questions. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Steve Detloff from 3908 Lakewood Avenue. And I'm just curious, so I'm seeing on our street, our section, which happens to be the south side of White Bear, Lakewood Avenue, Stacker, Homewood. And I know we're in what they call the reclaim, which is the bad section of the street. One question I would have is the assessment. What diligence was put into that assessment? And then secondly, what is going to determine the cost of that? Is that just a straight process for every area, or is it something that you look into and say, well, maybe we can do a mill and overlay, even though this is in bad shape, maybe we can do that? I guess that's kind of two questions in one, but what processes do you have to make that determination on?
Sure.
You've already made a determination here, you're bad, number one. Number two, what are the processes that come with that? Is it just a straight process? Here's what we're gonna do. And then three, is there any check or balance system into the rating of these streets?
Okay.
For example, maybe we don't agree that our street is a bad street, but yet it seems that we're in a bad area. So we're part of the bad group, I guess.
Sure. I
gave you three questions there.
I think the one answer to that, to basically all three, is there's further study on those streets. So the rating is one piece, and then grouping of projects is selected, and then there's a process called a feasibility study, and that you dive in deeper into that neighborhood and those streets, and you're looking at you're doing probes beneath the soil and the coring of the pavement, and those cores will help tell if they need that more costly improvement, or maybe we can get more life out of that street and doing a mill and overlay. And so that's the check and balance of that.
So then I would follow that up with, if we're deeming that this sections of streets that it be imminent, hey, this is a good mill and overlay, we can save money here. Wouldn't that be imminent that we go and test all streets right now? Because basically you're telling me from that test is gonna determine where we go with the next process.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't that make it imminent that we test all the streets at once, so we find out, are we really in this bad rating, or are we saying that that ground testing is really what's determining what the next step is gonna be?
Yeah, that's a good point. There's certain streets that are probably with that. There's a 2.2, and then there's, maybe they're in the ones, and we probably think that they are past that they're going to be a more costly repair. But yeah, certainly those ones that are closer to the 2.2 category, maybe that does make some sense to do some additional analysis before they get further along.
Is that core assessment you're talking about, is that the determinative thing that determines what's going to happen next?
Yes. Yep. It looks at the underlying.
I would ask the question: wouldn't it make sense to do a core assessment everywhere, or how are you getting at? You've done what I think is a subjective, a surface look, but yet you're telling me this core assessment is the key determiner. Wouldn't it make sense to do that and then figure out, hey, here's your real overlay, overlay ones, and here's your not. Here's how we should prioritize this. I'm just asking.
Yeah. No, that's a fair point. I think it's the streets that are closer to that 2.2 or right on that cusp are the streets you're talking about. Streets that are further along, and we also look at the age. When was it paved? Is that base, 40, 50 years old already when it was originally constructed, and now that pavement below that surface is already that age that it probably doesn't make sense to do that additional probing. But there are some cases in this township where it may make some sense to do additional analysis before they get further in below the 2.2.
Joe Kralchik. I also live on Lakewood down in Precinct 3. Perhaps you're the wrong individual to be asking this question of, but the assessment for that work, obviously, a portion of it is going to be borne by the township in general, and a part of it will be assessed to the homeowners whose area is improved. What approximately would be that percentage, and would that occur as it did with this sewer relining per household, or would it be by frontage on the road? Thank you.
Yeah, I'll answer the second question first. Generally, for neighborhoods, it's a unit assessment where everyone's assessed the same. When you get into properties that have part commercial, part residential, it gets a little trickier to do a unit assessment. It might be front footage, but that's more specific to properties that are adjacent to commercial. And your first question was the ratio between. Oh, yes. And the township's exploring that right now. We're exploring the cost for this 2019 project and getting a feasibility report prepared for that neighborhood, and we are preparing options for the township to consider on different ranges of assessment amounts.
I've been reminded, we need to go to the microphone and use that because this whole proceedings is being carried over closer to TV. So,
Steve Reeves, 5341 Cedarwood Court. I just want to say, while we're on the topic of roads, thanks to the Public Works Department for keeping the streets clear, especially this winter with all the snow events we've had. It's not, I can't imagine it's fun getting up in the middle of the night, having to do this over and over again every week, it seems like. So thanks a lot, guys.
Teresa Tingerthal, 1711 Whitaker. My question is, previous assessments for the roads, about what portion has been covered by the township taxes and what percentage has been individual assessments?
I understand previously that assessments were 100% of the cost. Now, the state statute allows a maximum assessment of the benefit received. And so the costs of improvements, because oil prices continue to rise and gas prices, the cost of road construction has increased. And so it may not be possible to assess 100% anymore because the benefit received isn't equal to the cost. So that's why the township is evaluating different options for that. Anybody else? Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Larry. Okay, now we're up to the item that I think everybody's really interested in. But first you have to listen to a Tom Kelly joke.
I don't have one.
Oh, phew, you're lucky. All right. What Tom is going to do is give us a preliminary, give us a statement for the preliminary tax levy for next year, 2020. And again, I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions. For the benefit of people watching on closed circuit TV, we do need any questions to be presented at the microphone. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry to disappoint people, but I just really don't have a joke. The only thing I can say is, going back to the last item, I told the town board, I said the good news is we do have the money to do the street improvements listed on the plan. The bad news, it's in your residents' pockets right now. So, as Larry said, we are still trying to figure out the right formula on assessments versus taxes and other funding mechanisms, but that's where we're at right now. As in the past, for the 2020 tax levy, first I'm going to go through kind of what happened in 2018, what we have going on in 2019 with our budget and tax levy, and then get into the 2020 proposed preliminary levy. As in the past, I've touted these awards. The first one here is for our annual financial report, our audit report for year end. That award, the Certificate of Achievement, the township has now received that award 22 years, and we're one of 139 government agencies in the state of Minnesota to receive that award. That includes townships, cities, counties, state organizations, and so there's only 139 that receive this award. On the bottom is our budget award. We're one of 29 government agencies in Minnesota to receive that award, and we've received that award 17 years, not in a row, but pretty much the last 5 years when I've been here, we've received that award. And then finally, the popular report, we've received that the last 4 years, and we're one of 16 government agencies in the state of Minnesota to receive that one. And we're one of 14 government agencies to receive all three of these awards in the state of Minnesota. So I'm very proud of that fact that we're able to achieve those awards. For 2018, we will be getting our audit. They've already started some of the preliminary work back in February. Then they'll be back in April and May to kind of complete the audit work, and then our auditors will present a final report in June to the town board. By state statute, we have to have the report submitted to the state auditor by the end of June. And so that's what we're trying for. And then once it has been presented to the board, it will be available on the town's website. If you do want some, if you're having trouble sleeping at night and you need something to put you to sleep, you could go on the town's website and get our current financial report for 2017. I'm sure you'll be asleep after a couple of pages. For 2018, and these are unaudited numbers, excuse me, right now we have total revenues of just under $4,300,000. Our budget for the year was just over $4 million. And unfortunately, property taxes accounted for just over 76% of those revenues. And that compares to similarly to what we've had the last few years. One good sign that the economy is doing well, normally our collection rate on our property taxes is usually about 98 to 99%, but for 2018 we've actually collected almost everything we have levied, so we're at almost 100%. And then other revenue sources that we had budgeted for 2018, a lot of those were slightly above what we had budgeted. On the expenditure side so far, we've expended just under $4 million. Our operating expenditures came in about $63,000 below the 2018 budget. However, we still got some bills that we're still getting in that we'll have to assign back to 2018. So we'll be probably very close to budget once all of those are recorded. In 2018, we had just over $1,897,000 in construction activities. Some of that was for the Pine Hill development, which is a new development. Apple Tree Park had some new improvements to it, and then we had the completion of the sanitary sewer lining, and then of course our 2018 seal coat project. On the good news, our debt service for 2018, we now only have $1,640,000 in debt outstanding. We have maintained our Moody's rating of AA2. Most of the debt that's outstanding is being paid for either through tax increments or special assessments. So it really hasn't affected our property taxes, and in fact we haven't had a debt levy in the last 4 to 5 years. Our enterprise funds, as you all know, as utility users, our rates, we have been adjusting them each year, and from those adjustments we now had in 2018, so far we've recorded $3,304,000, just over that. So far we've recorded expenditures of just over $3 million. However, we haven't recorded the $780,000 of depreciation yet. So even though we are showing a gain of about $200,000, we'll end up with a little bit of a loss once that depreciation gets recorded. Again, the utility funds, the gains and the losses a lot of times depend on the type of projects that we have going on, and the last couple of years we've had some quite large projects that have affected our balance. But the good news is we should be adding about $100,000 in cash to the utility funds for 2018. Our 2019 budget, We had our annual budget meeting on December 11th. Their residents approved the 2019 property tax levy of $3,403,055. That is what we did present to the residents. And then the residents recommended a 2019 operating budget of $4,231,356. And the town board did approve that budget at their December 17th town board meeting. And the budget itself, the largest portion of our budget is public safety. It's 37% of our total operating budget. Public works is then 25%, general government 23%, and then our parks makes up the remaining portion of that. 2019 budget was a balanced budget using a conservative revenue estimates. The 2019 budget increased revenues and expenditures about 4.65% over the 2018 budget. And this graph just shows the how much we do rely on property taxes for our revenues and to fund our operating expenses. The blue line here is property taxes, and the red lines or bars are all of our other revenues. And I would expect that will continue unless something changes in the legislature where we get money from some other sources. But we are heavily relying on our property taxes. For 2019, in fact, 80.42% of our revenue will come from property taxes. And as you can see from the chart here, it's very similar to what it has been in the past. The general operating budget, as I said, is a 4.65% increase. The different areas, general government, which is our town board, community development, recycling, the election activities, and our administration, that increased just over 3.5%. Our public safety, which is the police, the fire, and code enforcement, that did have a large increase of 5.74%. And then our public works activity, because we were trying to fund more of the seal coat project, and then we had some other things that increased. We assigned more public works time there. They did actually increase just over 9%. And then finally, our park and recreation activity actually decreased 3%. But again, that decrease was mainly due to some of the park improvements. We had fewer park improvements in 19 plan than we did in 18. As I said, the residents did approve a property tax levy of $3,403,055. That was an increase of 5.47% over our 2018 levy. Again, we did not have a debt levy. As I said, we haven't had one now for about 5 years. The good news is the town's tax capacity increased just over 5.5% and is over $14,408,000. And the only over the last 15 years, only 2008 did we have a higher tax capacity, and we're just slightly below that. So we've basically recovered from the housing crisis that happened in 2008, where values dropped. So we're back up to basically where they were before. The other good news on that is commercial values are starting to rise. Prior to 2019, it was mainly the residential properties that were increasing in values, and commercial was still flat from the recession. And now commercial values are rising when the residential values were rising and commercial was flat. It was shifting property tax burden more onto the residents than onto the commercial, and now that both are increasing, they're sharing equally into that any property tax increases that we've been having. The tax capacity and the levy resulted in a tax rate of 21.681%, which is still the third lowest in Ramsey County. The general fund, our budget and our 10-year CIP is available on the town's website and on our Facebook page. Again, some real good help you get to sleep reading if you so desire. Which brings us to the 2020 property tax levy. And again, you've heard it before, this is our worst case scenario. We've used conservative revenue estimates and our worst case expenditures. As we get into our budget process, we can always lower the levy, but we can't exceed the levy that is approved tonight. The 2020 budget and final property tax levy will be presented at the special town budget meeting, which is currently scheduled for 7 p.m. on December 10th. And it's scheduled at Heritage Hall as in the past. And that was set at, that date and time and location was set at last year's budget meeting. As I said, we can lower the levy, but we can't raise it. This chart just shows you the red is our preliminary levy and the yellow is our final levy. And you can see since 2000, every year we've basically presented you with a preliminary levy, and then the final levy has been lower than that. And we hope that'll be the case again this year. For 2019, for example, the preliminary levy was $3,868,742, and we ended up with a final levy of $3,403,055. So it dropped, over $460,000. The proposed preliminary levy for 2020 right now, as we are presenting it, is at $4,300,621. That's an increase of 11.16% from the 2019 preliminary levy. So last year, we're basically 11% over what I presented last year at this time to the residents. We determined that levy based on our 2019 budget and then 2018 and 17 actual revenues and expenditure level. And then we've added some inflationary adjustments with the following exceptions. 2020 will be an even year, and that means our rental dwelling licenses and our animal licenses are due for renewal. That adds revenue of about $24,700 to our budget. So that's $24,000 we don't have to levy for. We did leave our state and county aids at our 2019 amounts. The bad news is it really doesn't matter that much. In state aids, we get $15. Fiscal disparities, I just rounded it down to $275,000. Fiscal disparities is a revenue sharing pool for based on commercial development and commercial values. The formula to calculate that does use our levy a little bit. Since we did increase our levy, we probably will see a slight increase in our fiscal disparities for 2020, but I rounded it down to $275,000 for 2020. Antenna leases on our water towers, I reduced it down to $175,000 from our current $232,790. Part of that is we're starting to see with the small cell towers and stuff, there's less and less of a need for these companies to have the big antennas on our water towers. And so I'm thinking eventually those leases are going to go away. In fact, one of the companies that leases on one of our towers we just received notice that they're in bankruptcy. So I think those revenues, why they were nice, why we had them, might eventually be going away. And hopefully, if we do get the revenues and we only budget a smaller amount, we can assign some of those revenues to our street projects so that we don't have to assess and levy the full things to you. We can get it from some of these antenna leases. On the expenditure side, we're still under our union contract, which calls for a 2% increase on January 1st and a 1.5%, it should say, on July 1st. The union contract does expire at the end of 2020, so starting next year we'll be renegotiating the contract, but right now we are locked into that for 2020. Right now, the 2019 budget has a new full-time public works position. So in 2020, we have to budget for the full year for that position. We haven't filled that position yet. In fact, we haven't even advertised for it yet, so we're only going to have part of 19 to pay for that position. But in 2020, if we do hire somebody for that, we'll have the full year. So that was added into the budget. And then we have a new part-time administrative position that we're proposing to start sometime in 2020. It would help with some of our communications, updating our website, getting us going on record retentions and schedules and stuff like that. We increased our summer help budget to increase the increased need for street maintenance and park maintenance needs. For right now in the 2020 budget, we have $50,000 proposed for those part-time summer help compared to our 2019 budget where we budgeted $36,000 for those activities. Para, our retirement fund for our employees, they have been requesting the legislature to increase the contribution rate both for the township share and for the employee share the last few years. Because of governor vetoes and stuff, those bills or those increases haven't got passed. I expect them to be back before the legislature asking for an increase again. So I've increased that to 8%. It's currently at 7.5, I think, or 7.75. So I've got a little bit of an increase in case they go back before the legislature asking for that. Health insurance, I increased 15%. Currently, in 2019, we had about a 3% increase on our health insurance rates, but in the past, we've been around 7 to 8% on our health insurance, so I've got a little bit of wiggle room there. All of those items that I just listed basically increases our budget by just over $154,000 or 11.71%. Other items that have changed, I increased the transfer for our seal coat project by $31,000 to $112,500. We haven't been funding our seal coating 100%. The last few years, and including in 2020, we proposed a seal coat project with a cost of around $150,000. So we're getting closer to funding that at 100% by increasing it up to $112,500. Park improvements based on our 10-year CIP, we'll put in $275,000 on the budget. Our equipment rental fees that we charge the departments for the equipment that they use so that when we need to replace the equipment, we have the funds on hand. I'm setting that right now at 60%. We're currently funding it between 30 to 25%. So again, it's something we have not been funding at 100% like we should. So that by doing it, moving it up, increasing those fees up to 60% of the depreciation costs, we're getting closer to that 100%. The sheriff's contract for patrol and dispatch, and then the fire budget, I have increased at 10% and 17.06% respectively. In 2019, the fire department budget took a pretty healthy increase so that they could hire some additional full-time firefighters to improve response time during the day. So I've got that a little bit higher than normal, so that we can meet their new demands. Likewise with the sheriff's department, they have some capital costs and so forth that look like will go online possibly in 2020. So I've got those increased a little bit more than what we've seen in the past. In 2020, I've got $85,000 budgeted for sign replacement for the new reflectivity standards. Originally, we were supposed to have all of our signs replaced and meeting new federal reflectivity standards by 2020, but they keep pushing it out, and they finally did away with that, but yet we still need to replace some of our signs to get them more readable at night and so forth, especially for the emergency vehicles. And then we've budgeted $35,000 for emerald ash borer activities, whether that be treating trees or removing trees that are affected by the ash borer. We did have some cases of ash borer reported in 2018, and I would expect some more in 19 and then even in 20. So we've got some money budgeted to deal with that. Township Day budget, we've got $41,500 budgeted for that festival. In the past, we've spent about $36,750 on that activity, so I've increased that a little bit. And then if we do go ahead with the 2019 street project that Larry was talking about just a few minutes ago, we will have to issue debt to pay for those that project, which will then give us, with planning not having the ability to assess 100%, we're going to have to come up with the township share. So I do have $34,190 budgeted for a debt levy to start repaying the bonds that we'd issue in 2019 based on a preliminary bond schedule that we have. And as I said, it would be our first debt levy since 2015. All of that results in a 2020 preliminary property tax levy of $4,300,621, and you can see the breakdown between our operating levy, the fiscal disparities, that debt levy, and all those three items total that $4,300,621. Also, in doing this, just to give you some estimates, I did leave the town's tax capacity at the $14,408,143, which is what it is for 2019. I'd expect that to increase for 2020, but if we leave it at that at the 2019 rate, and the levy that I propose is approved, our tax rate would go to 27.94. Last year when I did the presentation at the annual meeting, we estimated the tax rate at 26.268, so we're not too far off from there. And if there was no change in your home's market value, you would see a property tax increase of $84, or between $84 and $188 for homes valued at $135,000 up to $300,000. To make that more palatable, you could break it down to a monthly cost. It would be $7 to $15.68 a month more that you'd be paying in property taxes. As I've said, the red line here is the preliminary levy that we presented at the annual meeting here in March, and the yellow line is the final levy. And I would hope that when we get down to December, when we have the budget meeting again, we'll be down somewhat lower than what the red bar is there. That's my hope anyways. Again, our tax rate is the third lowest in Ramsey County. White Bear Lake and North Oaks are the only two that are lower than us. North Oaks is way lower than everybody else, and that's because they pay for a lot of their services through an association fee. So instead of a levy, they are paying a fee for their services. Your property tax bill that you'll be receiving here probably shortly, the breakdown of it, most of the money you pay in property taxes goes to Ramsey County. They make up about 48% of your property tax bill. The school district makes up 24% of your property tax bill, and then the township makes up 20%, and then there's some miscellaneous taxing districts that make up just over 7% of your property tax budget. So again, after tonight, the town can lower their budget as we go through, or the levy as we go through our budget process, but we cannot exceed whatever is approved tonight. This is our worst case scenario using conservative revenue estimates and worst case expenditure estimates. And we do have the preliminary budget or preliminary tax levy proposed at $4,300,621. Our budget work will actually get started at the end of May, beginning of June. That's when department heads will start filling out what they think they need for 2020. For operating expenses, we'll start getting in some of our revenue estimates from the different organizations. And so we'll really start working at the budget in July, starting to work towards, as I said, hopefully lowering this levy. With that, I'll take any questions that you may have on our budget or our past activity or anything you may have on the town's finances. Yes, sir.
Ralph Tilma, 4294 Oakmead Lane. If I read these statements correctly, the tax levy is going to increase by over $900,000. And we're going to have to borrow money to take care of that. We need to work harder to find a way to reduce our expenses so that we do not have to go out and borrow money. That is an expense that continues for a long period of time. There's also financial commercial banks that we have to pay to float a loan, so there's more money associated with it that way. One source of funds might be to sell the White Bear stable properties, which the township now owns and purchased for over $900,000. So what is the chance that we can sell the White Bear stable property and raise this $900,000 over there rather than put it on my tax bill or borrow money?
Let's take those in different steps. For our operating budget, we won't be borrowing any money. That is strictly through either other revenue sources that we currently get, like our licenses, our building permits, those sort of things, and our property tax levy. The only thing that we borrow money or will have to borrow money for is if we go ahead with the street reconstruction projects that were proposed in Larry's presentation. because they're going to cost over $2 million, the township doesn't have $2 million just sitting in the bank that we could use to pay that and wait for our money to come back in through either assessments or property taxes or whatever you have. So the only thing we'd be levying for is the street reconstruction projects. That would be the only thing we'd be borrowing money for. The second part of that question on the stable property, and it's kind of semantics, but there's legal stuff into it. The Town Economic Development Authority actually purchased that land with the idea to resell it. And we're going to be trying to resell it hopefully this year in 19 and get some development happening on that property. But because the Economic Development Authority owns it, we're restricted as to what we can use that money for that we get back from that property. And chances are, because of the type of development that that property will allow or can hold, we're probably not going to get the money that we paid for it out of it. So there's going to have to be some other funding there to help with that. And so we'll probably be creating a tax increment district for that to get all of our money back out of that district.
Well, that's going to be residential, right?
Yes, yes. Eventually, those residential homes will be paying, once they're on the tax rolls, you know, it would add to our tax capacity, which would then lower the tax rate and, in theory, lower everybody's property taxes. But that's going to take a while, you know. Especially if we create a TIF district, because TIF tax increments are restricted as to the type of use and so forth that we can use. It won't be able to be used for our general operating expenses. Once the district expires, it can be. And likewise, even if we don't create a tax increment district, because of the lag in when you will receive your notice of your 2019 property tax values in about May from the county assessor, and those values would be used for the 2020 tax levy. And so any home that would be, let's just say if they started a house in 19, they would be using the value of the land at the beginning of 2019, which is just land. And then, so it'd be like, we wouldn't see any value added until like at the earliest 2021. So there's just a lag there, so it does take time. But eventually, you're right, any development there, whether it's residential, commercial, it would add to our tax capacity, which would then lower our tax rate and lower your taxes from that.
With all the infrastructure like streets and stores.
Yeah, those will have either the developer pay or we'd be assessing those. And because they are new assessments, more than likely we can assess 100% of those. So they'll pay for the infrastructure. It's just, you know, like I say, there's a lag before those values actually hit the tax rolls to help lower the property taxes. The other point that you kind of hit on is, yes, we are increasing our expenditures from year to year. Things are going up. The town board does try to keep our expenditures as close as possible and understands that when we do increase our expenditures, it's affecting the residents in a property tax levy, and so they do their best to maintain what we have and keep services where they're at without reducing services So they are very cognizant of who's paying for these services.
This debt to me is something to be avoided. I'm the type of person who's never borrowed to buy a car, not once. So I like it when I don't have debt. It's a nice feeling. I don't have to make payments or interest. And the township should be looking at it the same way. I think that maybe you need to adjust the street program if we can possibly avoid going back into the bond market.
Yeah. Good news is right now with interest rates being as low as they are, it's a good time to borrow money. But I'm with you. I'd rather have the money. But again, the only other thing would be, like I say, I can basically fund everything they're presenting in the street improvement plan that Larry presented. The bad news is it's basically I need the money from the residents to do it. It's got to come from somewhere, and unfortunately, without some changes in the legislature, we don't have a lot of options available to us right now. We're working with the legislature to maybe enact some of those changes where we can get more in aid, like the city of White Bear Lake and some of the other cities, but that's kind of an uphill battle. Because like I say, the city of White Bear Lake gets over $1 million in aid and we get $15. So.
Now, I think you have another question back here.
Sure.
I didn't just answer. I'm just looking at the budget.
Yep.
Township budget 2017. Steve Detloff, Lakewood Avenue. The township budget, which is a 2017 budget, and you might have just answered it, but I was wondering, our tax rate, even though it is one of the lowest, is 3 percentage points, I think, above White Bear, the city. And my question was, how long have we been above the city? Can somebody give me an idea? Have we always been above the city? I always thought we were lower than the city. And so I'm looking at that, and to me, 3% seems like a lot. You just told me about $1 million that we don't get that they get, so that probably plays a role. What else goes into that?
Yeah.
Actually, Tom, the number is $1.5 million.
Oh. Yeah. Basically, let's go to how long. We were the second lowest, and I left the township in 2008, I want to say, and and the town became the third largest. So I want to say in about 2009, because of other factors and stuff. White Bear Lake, or cities, I shouldn't just single out White Bear Lake. Because of the local government aid formula, as Bob said, the city of White Bear Lake gets $1.5 million in local government aid. We get $15. Another thing the city gets, which helps with their street reconstruction projects, is they get municipal aid or gas tax money. And because we're a township, we're not eligible for that. So we don't get anything that way. So even though you are paying taxes every time you fill up your gas tank, we do not get the benefit of those funds. Well, I guess I shouldn't say we don't get, the county gets some benefit from it, so that when they do county roads, they get some benefit. But those are the two things that the city gets that we do not get. Now, in 2017, as you said, we were about 3 percentage points higher, but because the city increased their levy quite a bit last year because of different things, we're only about 2% higher now. So we're closing that gap on them, but it's probably going to be a while before I can stand up here and possibly say we're going to be the second lowest. So I don't know if that answered your question fully or not.
Thank you.
Other questions? Seeing none, I'll turn it back to Bob.
All right. So as Tom mentioned, then, the action that we're being requested for township residents to approve tonight is to approve the proposed 2020 preliminary property tax levy. And the total amount, as Tom said, was $4,300,621. So we need a motion from the township residents and a second. Is there a motion?
I'll move.
Motion's been made. Is there a second? Second. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the preliminary property tax levy for 2020. If there's no further discussion, those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That one nay. All right, the motion passes. And there is no other business on the agenda other than a couple of announcements. A vote was previously taken to set the special budget meeting for Tuesday, December 10, 2019 at 7 p.m. in Heritage Hall. So that's already been set. And there is a backup meeting date. If bad weather prevents using that date, then the backup meeting date would be December 12th at 7 p.m. at Heritage Hall. And then the final item that we have to do is, by your vote, set a time and location for the 2020 annual meeting to be held at this location, Otter Lake Elementary School, at 7 p.m. or in the event of inclement weather or some other reason that can't happen, use Heritage Hall at 7 p.m. Tuesday, March 10th. What did I miss here?
No, it's to hold the meeting on March 10th at either this location.
I'm sorry, yeah.
Or here.
Yeah, okay. Everybody else understands that? I don't, but as long as you guys understand, that's what counts. Is there a motion to that effect?
Mr. Moderator, just a point of clarification. Town Attorney Patrick Kelly speaking in. You have two separate motions on this, right? Item 12.
It would be one motion. The
It's
issue
already been set.
is whether or not we should have it here, which has generally been the vote of the residents, or move it to Heritage Hall. So the motion would be to hold the meeting on March 10th. Either the motion that would be made would be to hold the meeting March 10th at Otter Lake Elementary School,
Okay.
or to hold the meeting on March 10th at Heritage Hall. That would be, it'd be either or.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the one option is for the meeting here, the annual meeting here, or the other option is at Heritage Hall.
I move that we have the next meeting here as with the last several years pretty well.
That would be March 10th. Okay, so a motion's made to have the next annual meeting March 10th here at Otter Lake Elementary School at 7 p.m. Is there a second? Any further discussion? Did that address the question, Pat?
Thank you. I needed the clarification.
Yeah.
I do have one other item. I know it's pending, but you do have other business.
Okay.
A statement of no further business, item 14 on the agenda.
Right, that's next, that's item 14. We're only on 13.
I know, I'm just.
Okay, thank you for, we need all the help we can get sometimes. All right, so the motion's made and seconded. There's no further discussion. Those in favor of the motion to have the next annual meeting at this location, March 10th, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes. And then finally, item 14 is for Other business. Is there any other business?
We'll keep it brief. John Bartholomew, 4448 Margaret Street. I'm here for a group that has been formed, Neighborhood Concerned Citizens Group. We're here to address water gremlin. We're concerned about the number of people that have been exposed to toxic emissions. This has been a fast-moving subject. Up till a month ago, White Bear Township, Gem Lake, and White Bear have been pretty sleepy, happy communities. And all that changed on January 31st when the Township Board was notified that 2 hours before, Pollution Control Agency was going to have a statement about water gremlin. On January 1st, we were notified via the paper that they have been shut down for polluting the environment. Since then, we've had 2 meetings. One meeting that was put on by the PCA to address it, and then a month later, on the 1st of January, Water Gremlin and the PCA reached an agreement. They were fined $7 million. Last Thursday, we had another meeting put on by the PCA and the Health Department and with the people to address the conditions, concerns, a lot of questions. Our group yesterday called at Heritage Hall for a meeting of all the groups that were concerned, and that's county officials, state officials, various people from the neighborhood. And out of that came what happened today. At approximately 11:30, Senators Chuck Uygur, Roger Chamberlain, Senator Isaacson, and Victoria Reinhardt proposed a bill that said that $4.5 million of the $7 million settlement, which was a civil fine, was to be put in a separate account, and it was to be used only by the stakeholders, which is us, to be used as needed as we go forward. We were concerned that the money would be put into the general fund, the state coffers, whatever. This didn't happen. The bill was presented. There were no questions. It was voted on and passed. That's a score for us in our community. Tomorrow, we will be at the Senate again, and Chamberlain will present a bill to ban TCE, the use of TCE in the state. This is a very toxic pollutant. It's used to clean parts. It has been banned in other countries. It's been banned in other states. It's been sitting on the desk of the EPA for 4 years now, and it has not been signed. We expect that bill, we hope that bill will be passed tomorrow. There's no reason for it not to be. But I'm here to let people know that there is a group of citizens that have been formed to address the concerns. We're still in our infancy. We have more questions than answers and a great deal of angst among the population, the least of which, or the most important, is our health concerns, property values, water, everything else. Currently, we have a Gmail account that I will give that you can contact, and it's called Neighbors Unite 55110 at gmail.com. And again, we're still getting formed. We need some help. We need someone that's a web developer to help us out. So that being said, I would like to turn it over to another one of the neighbors. Sherry Smith is another one of the core group. She has some questions that hopefully can be answered by the Township Board. And Ed, you look like a deer in the headlights, but here it comes.
I am Sherry Smith, 4345 Whitaker Court, and I do have a comment and a question for the White Bear Township Board. So as John expressed, there is considerable and profound concern among the citizens who have been exposed to these toxic emissions. There is lots of discovery still underway. What are the pollutants? How long have we been exposed? what type of pollutants. Until we get those questions answered, I want to know if the Township Board can make a comment about the planned expansion that Water Gremlin has been pursuing.
Pat, Patrick, can you address that question? Can you?
As far as I know, the expansion was put on hold back in December, guys?
January.
When we met the other morning, I know you guys did a great presentation with the group. A couple things caught my mind. Obviously, we are suspending any expansion of Water Gremlin as it stands right now. We are accumulating and gathering as much information as like you folks can. We're also going a little bit above and beyond. We're going to start testing our private wells. We don't have very many in that area. I think they're 2 to 5. Our municipal wells were tested in October, which came out clean. And then we're looking at all other industries in the township, whether they use TCE or not. We're looking at all their permits. Obviously, the township was caught a little bit flat-footed too. We did not realize that process of their monitoring was self-reporting. So we are going proactive and making sure that this doesn't happen in another one of our industries. So we're looking at that. And then we're just basically trying to address all you guys' concerns and all our residents' concerns. And as we get information, we're going to pass it on to you. Well, we're doing the best we can. This is we're not MPACA specialists. We're not Minnesota Department of Health specialists. We rely on these folks. They've kind of let us down, but we're doing our best to get up to speed on it. And we appreciate all the input that you folks gave us.
Thanks, Ed.
And I would like to ask if the testing in the municipal wells was for TCE only or for other pollutants?
For everything.
Okay, so lead.
Yep.
All right. And I appreciate the remark, the fact that it was characterized as letting us down is, it doesn't begin to cover what people are feeling in terms of health concerns, property values, what's been going on. And again, we're still in the discovery phase, and I just, I want to be able to rely upon the township where this business is held, that you're standing with us and you're listening. And
You got to remember, all three of us live in the township too, so we're in the same boat with you.
all right, thank you.
Thank you all. All right, is there any other business? One more chance for other business. If not, is there a motion to adjourn? Is there a second? Second. And is there those in favor of adjourning, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned.